What is a blockchain? Well, we talked about in the last video that a blockchain is a solution to a problem. So check out that previous video if you haven't already. But what actually is a blockchain, conceptually speaking or technically speaking? Well, it can be kind of hard to understand, how a blockchain works the first time around because it has so many responsibilities. It does so many different things in a different way than other types of technology you might have used in the past or anything you've really ever used before. So a blockchain you can think about in three different ways. And these are kind of three different responsibilities that the blockchain assumes, and it does all three of these things at the same time. So these three different aspects are that it's a network, it's a database, and it's a computer. So it's a network in the sense that it's a public network that anyone can access. You just need an internet connection and you connect to a blockchain. It's a database because it stores information on it, and it's also shared across a network. And it's also a computer because it has computational overhead. It has computational resources that can, do math and run programs, or at least some blockchains can run programs, okay? So let's kind of unpack each of these different layers to kind of help better understand how a blockchain works. Well, first and foremost, it's a public network. So like I said, anyone who has access to an internet connection can connect to a blockchain. And if you're a user of the blockchain, then you're a user of the entire network. So that might be different from other systems where, if you are going to use a website, then basically you have to register with the website and you get stored in the website's database. Well, it's different on blockchain. If you're a user of the network, basically you're stored on the network and, you have access to everything on the network. So if you want to use a blockchain, you need an account or an address. And if you own cryptocurrency, you need this, right? And sometimes people call this a wallet. That term is kind of ambiguous. People say wallet when they mean an account. Sometimes they say wallet when they mean an app that just shows your account and your balances and transactions and things like that. But basically, if you want to connect to the blockchain, you need an account address that's going to represent you on the network. And in order to connect to it, how do you do that? Well, you connect to a single node on the network in order to access the entire blockchain, right? So the blockchain is made up of nodes, which are basically just computers that talk to one another. We're going to talk about more of that here in a minute, but that's how you do it. You basically have a URL that connects to one of the nodes on the network. And you can run this node yourself, or you can connect to someone else's node. But that's how you access the public network, is by having an account and getting a URL to an Ethereum node or whatever kind of blockchain you're on, or running one yourself. And this single node is going to give you access to the entire network. So a blockchain is also a shared database. It's a shared database that's distributed across every single node in the network. And everyone who's connected to a node or runs a node, has access to this data and has a copy of it on the blockchain. So this database is made up of transactions. Anytime something happens on the blockchain, it creates a transaction. And this is just like a record in a traditional database like MySQL or PostgreSQL or MongoDB or whatever you're used to potentially in the past. But what's different about the data on the blockchain is it's immutable, which means it cannot change. And this is part of the trustless aspect of the blockchain, is that once something's in the database in the blockchain, it's there forever. And that's sort of a key feature of how the blockchain works. So we use an example of money. If I send money on the blockchain, it creates a transaction in the blockchain's database, basically. And, if you use a blockchain application, then the same kind of thing happens. If you went to a blockchain application like CryptoKitties and you bought a kitty, then that's going to create some data on the blockchain. It's going to create a transaction. And, this is transparent. Anyone can see any of the transactions on the blockchain. So all of the transactions on the blockchain are grouped into bundles of records called blocks, which are chained together to make up the blockchain. That's where the blockchain name comes from. All right. And all this, all the transactions that are grouped in these blocks and all the blocks together, they make up the public ledger. All right. Now, the public ledger is sort of the final arbiter of truth. It's shows the current state of the blockchain and the history, right? And basically the current state of the blockchain, or everything as it is now, is built from the history, right? So as an example would be, money, right? If I, own some cryptocurrency and I have a wallet and I have an account on the blockchain, and I've, sent cryptocurrency, I've received cryptocurrency, all of those transactions, created transactions on the blockchain. That's going to be my account history. And if I want to know how much cryptocurrency I currently have, then all that's going to be is a sum of my history. That's going to show me the current state of my account. So basically, if I use the Bitcoin blockchain and I have 10 Bitcoin, it's because, I either mined Bitcoin or someone sent me Bitcoin, or I bought it on an exchange, and maybe I sent some back and forth. But the fact that I have 10 Bitcoin currently is that the sum of all the transactions on my account currently equals, 10 Bitcoin. And all this transaction data is, shared across the blockchain in this big shared database. All right, so the third way we can think about a blockchain is as a world computer. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that, blockchain is made up of nodes. It's a peer-to-peer network of nodes that all talk to one another. And each of these nodes is basically just a computer. There's computational resources involved, for doing all of this. So further, some blockchains support the ability to run programs, with either scripts or smart contracts, which we'll talk about more. And, those are just ways that, a blockchain is also a computer, right? Some blockchains are specialized to run programs. And basically, those are programs that would run as a computer would execute them, but they're executed on the blockchain. Or, if you think about a program that runs on your local computer versus a program that runs on a server versus a program that runs on a blockchain. These are three kind of different environments where a program might run, and that's sort of an analogy to help us understand how the blockchain is a computer. It can support programs that can be run that way. All right, so let's backtrack a little bit and just recap. Right. So what is a blockchain? It's a solution to a problem like we talked about in the last video, but it's a network that anyone can connect to. It's a database that's shared across the entire network where all the transaction data is shared. It's a computer, right, that can run programs, that's responsible for creating new transactions and serving transactions and things like that. All right, so in the next video, we're going to go more in depth and talk about how the blockchain actually works.